So microphone is there. This one is like for walking. But if you want to sit, you can use this microphone.
I can take the lamp with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, here is also. I used to have a little lamp for traveling, for my talks, because I wanted to make sure my eyes are not that.
Yeah.
I always need the light to read. But I'm the second one.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I just wanted to ask if everything is okay, everything is working, so. Okay.
I'm still working. For the moment.
Sorry, Ellen, I see.
Hi, it is.
This ridiculous is not true. I'm not the best even, no.
But you are the best organizer for this conference.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I really try to do my best.
Morning.
So are you ready for your presentation?
Well, are you ever ready for something like that? I'll try my best.
But she also yes,
No, I was here. Yeah, but you left us.
Wiesz, to tam? A to bardzo są twoje zdania. Ale teraz myślę.
Myślę, że o co się mówi, trzeba z mikrofonem. Byste mě neslyšeli, tak mi řekni, mám tendence.
Daj, jeszcze 3 minuty poczekajmy.
Jenom stačí, musíš ho zapnout tady.
Jeszcze dostaniemy mamy.
Actually, they're for 2 years. Croatia. We are almost neighboring countries. After their masters, but next year. That's the one today. It's very difficult. Now they're reconstructing the mountain so that yeah, it's like the fountain, yeah. You go in the fountain. Did you study that? No. She's great. She's great. Yeah, she's my professor. Like I know her very, very well. She's really great. I don't know. She doesn't seem to participate in many conferences like this. Yeah, Irene is back, and she also participates. It's like more participation of seminar study companies. Has a small Howard. Yeah, she's also doing good. She's really great. Yeah. My supervisor there is money. No, Andrea Senza. So you study by seminar. So are you going to that? No, I don't study biomechanics, but I have some work. It's really interesting. But yeah, like most of our guys are coming Okay, before the when I was only organized in Europe, it's crazy. I might even go to buy things. I am interested in magic things, sort of. I mean, I do have a background in this, so like creation language. Yes, I do have a background. And now I'm focusing on contemporary education. Right now, yeah, I am gonna apply like next year for PhD. I don't know, if I was semiotics, I'm always interested in magic numbers like that.
It's fine. It's working.
We will see.
You tested it.
Not yet, but I tested it earlier. It's working, but it doesn't mean anything. With this microphone.
I had a lot of mic problems.
But it doesn't. It's very second.
Good morning. Let me open the very final day of our summer school. I hope you are fresh after yesterday's party because we need you to be in full strength for today final party. Our morning session has two keynote speakers, and the first keynote speaker is Dr. Jana Schulzeva. She is from Charles University in Prague, Faculty of Science, Department of History and Philosophy of Science. What I wanted to stress, most of us, we are from humanities or social sciences, but Jana is the real scientist, and her main focus is epigenetics, very important field for contemporary biology. And this is one of her most recent publications in epigenetics. It's a monograph from 2019. It's a great book. So for those of you who want to do epigenetics, highly recommend it.
You can download it.
This is the title of her upcoming book to be published with the Springer Nature publisher. So we have something to look forward also. And just to mention two of her most recent papers. Both of these papers are from this year. Me personally, I really liked the one about the concept of the closure. It's a very important topic also, so others for me. You will receive many citations from me for this one. And without further delay, I would like to invite Dr. Jana Schulzeva to give a lecture. The title is Exploring the Visual Metaphor of Epigenetic Landscape by Conrad Hall Waddington.
Okay, Ludmila, thank you very much. This is the nicest introduction everyone ever done for me. Anyone, I mean, so on verge of crying almost. But for inviting me, thank you for inviting me. It's always a big pleasure to work with you. And every good lecture starts with an apology. But already Ludmila said that I'm not a theorist of metaphors, or I'm not a linguist. So this presentation of mine will guide you through this quite famous biological metaphor of epigenetic landscape. And it will be rather biological and historical. And maybe you can later in the discussion offer me some your insight, So, why I like this metaphor? When you look at the contemporary biology, as it was mentioned several times on this conference, mechanistic, machine-like metaphors are quite prevalent, in biology. Dawkins calling us survival machines. Albert, he's one of the authors of textbooks for students, to learn about cellular biology. And this machine metaphor language permeates the biological theories in all possible directions, right? Like cells being full of protein machines, spliceosome, they splice DNA in a certain manner in order to get more variation in proteins. So biology is full of this metaphor. Actually, as you said also yesterday, some of us, this metaphor sedimented quite heavily. And sometimes the biologists don't even realize that it's a metaphor, Cells are being also compared a lot to factories and so on. So the reason why I wanted to present you this metaphor of Waddington is because this metaphor is different. It is based on a rather non-mechanistic framework for understanding living beings, which is also like semiotics and biosemiotics. So that's why I like it. And it is usually depicted like this. So in this presentation, I would like to tell you about the strength of the metaphor, about its historical development. But before I start with the explanation of the metaphor itself, I have to introduce you into the historical concept of biology when this metaphor emerged, because without history, science does not make sense, of course, and because of the historical context, you would see the strength of this metaphor more, I believe. So, the time when Waddington lived. This is Conrad Hall Waddington, a very, very cool guy. And he's often claimed to be a pioneer of developmental genetics or epigenetics, and also sometimes he's described as like last Renaissance biologist because he had a lot of interest. He published dozens of books on several topics, not only developmental biology, but he also stressed importance of theoretical biology, which I of course like because it's a field I study. And he also stressed ecological problems, but he was also interested in art, and that's why he came up with this metaphor, of course. So, the historical context. When Conrad Hall Waddington attended Cambridge, Mendelian laws of heredity were already rediscovered. Okay? And the influence of genetics was growing quite rapidly. The studies of genetics started to focus more on model organisms like Drosophila, which are cheap and they have regeneration time really quick one, and they usually study like big mutations in Drosophila and observed some phenotypic effect. And what is typical for this period also is that evolutionary morphology, the study of relation of evolution and embryology, becomes forgotten. It was until this time it was quite popular. It was studied mostly in Germany, but with the enchantment of genes, suddenly this topic is abandoned. And this enchantment of genes is understandable. I mean, like discovering something like this, discovering this ultimate level of description for biological phenomena, that had to be really something, at the time. And the change of paradigm is quite visible on when you consider the departure from embryology by these two main figures, William Bateson and Thomas Hunt Morgan. They both studied studied embryology before genetics, but when Mendelian laws of heredity were discovered, William Bateson turned to genetics. He became a big fan, and he believed that finally there is a science which will explain what embryology had failed to explain, and he proclaimed an advent of a new science. So, and he was English, and in America there was Thomas Hugh Morgan, and he was also embryologist and also turned to genetics, and he believed that genetics and ontogeny should be studied separately, that you cannot merge them in science. And he was trying to do it, but he failed, that are his words. And he viewed embryology as a metaphysics, which went nowhere, whereas genetics offered some rigorous explanations or mechanistic approach to understanding evolution through genetics of populations. So, this first name, that something is metaphysics, is quite old. And we are being called metaphysician at my department as well, a lot. But depends how you define metaphysics, right? But Waddington also joined Morgan's lab in order to study Drosophila. So Morgan taught him a lot of things. Before that, Waddington rather studied tissue interactions, but he somewhat felt that they don't give the right answer of how development functions, And I would like to also mention that development or ontogeny as such is still a big puzzle until today,